Good afternoon, my name is Jane Satchwell. I'm the principal of Chelsea Heights Primary School, and this afternoon we're speaking to Dylan Wiliam about his book, Embedded Formative Assessment. Good afternoon, Dylan. I was just wondering if you could let me know how you describe the book to someone who hasn't yet read it.
The book is the result of a 35-year journey for me. I started out as a teacher and I was really interested in making my teaching more responsive to the needs of the students. Over time I left school teaching. I then became a university teacher trainer, did research, but always at the back of my mind has been this idea that we can actually make a better job of making our teaching more responsive to the needs of our students. So what I've done in the book is really to come up with 5 strategies that are at the heart of making teaching meet students' learning needs better. First of all, sharing with them where we're going in the learning, sharing the learning intentions with the students. Second, finding out where the students are. Before you try to teach them anything, find out what they already know. Thirdly, giving feedback that actually moves their learning forward. Feedback shouldn't look backwards at where the students have come from. Feedback should be about the next steps in learning. And then the last 2 strategies involve the students. First of all, students should be learning resources for one another. They should be helping each other learn. But the final strategy is, in a way, the central one. It's about activating students as owners of their own learning. And the book details the research behind those 5 strategies and about 50 classroom techniques that teachers can use to embed these strategies in their own classrooms.
Dylan, I think it's fantastic to hear someone who brings their research from actually a practical basis, but also there's obviously been some influences on you from other people. Can you tell me who the major influences in the book, or who were the major people who influenced you within the book?
Well, the major influence throughout my whole intellectual life has been Paul Black, my collaborator in this work. He and I have been working together now for 25 years, and one of the really interesting things is our work has been successful as a collaboration because we think about things so differently. So his background is as a university physicist, mine is a school teacher of mathematics, and often I try out ideas on him and he doesn't actually take the ideas in the way that I think he's going to go. And because we've been kind of trying to make sense of things from each other's perspectives, that has made the work much clearer and I think has made it much easier for teachers to access. It's because of that difference in perspective, and I think that would be the major influence I would identify.
Do you want to elaborate further on what your driving motivation for writing the book was?
The thing that really powers me is students. They need to learn more and more as the world gets more complex. The fact that education becomes much more important as the world becomes more complex. But then the power of teachers. The thing that's really been very exciting over the last 10 years is our understanding of how much of a difference really great teachers make. Now, that has led some people to say we should go for a witch hunt of getting rid of the least effective teachers. And my view is that's completely the wrong approach. What we should be focusing on is helping every teacher do a better job day in, day out. Not because they're not good enough, but because they can be even better. And I see this book as a help to teachers to think about in what kinds of directions they would like to develop their practice.
What do you see as the main benefits for educators when they're reading your book?
What I hope I've achieved in the book is, first of all, to get teachers to understand how difficult it is to change practice. And the book is accepting of the fact that teaching is an extraordinarily complex task. There can never be any clear, simple set of guidelines about how to go about it. Each teacher needs to find their own way of taking new ideas and incorporating them into their practice. By the work I've done in looking at research, I think I've begun to pull together some important ideas about what works in teaching. But I think the most important work I've been doing has actually been following behind the best teachers. Most people assume that research leads practice, but in education it doesn't. I see my job as following behind the best practitioners, looking at what they do, trying to make sense of what they do, and maybe also filtering it through some research ideas so that it can actually be more easily applied by other teachers. So I see my job as effectively a broker. I follow behind the best practitioners, make sense of what they do, and then through the book share it with other teachers.
I'm really interested to know how you feel that your book can contribute to supporting the challenges of school improvement.
I think for me, the one thing that has to happen is that everybody in teaching needs to accept that it's such a hard job, such a complex job, that you never get any good at it. teaching is the most difficult job I've ever done. It's much harder than running a university, which I've also done. And the great thing about it is you never get any good at it. You can always improve. So for me, the book is helpful if it helps people realize that every teacher can improve. Whether you've been teaching a week or 20 years, you can still always get better. It's what makes it the best job in the world, because you never get any good at it. And the important thing then is focusing your work on what can I change about my teaching that's going to make the biggest difference to my students. Any teacher can try out new ideas, but the danger is we spend a lot of time trying out new ideas that don't help our students. Given that schooling is a one-shot deal for our students, we need to be really picky about the kinds of things that we work on, because otherwise we might waste time on things that aren't going to help our students. And that's why I think that the combination of research evidence about what works, combined with really practical classroom techniques, is the way forward. And I hope that my book is a good example of that kind of practice.
Thank you, Dylan. I've got to say that in reading your book myself, I actually found it a very enjoyable read. I read a lot of things that support my role in education that are helpful but tedious. I think that balance you have of the practical with the theory was a very enjoyable read and very helpful. And thank you for your time.
You're very welcome.